Evidence is one of the most important pieces of an evidence response. In an evidence response, you always have a claim that you're trying to prove, and in order to really prove it, you have to have evidence to back it up. Just like a detective in a courtroom would need to include different pieces of evidence to convince the jury that they have proven their claim or their argument, you need to have evidence from a text that is going to help you back up what you're trying to say. Evidence can't be in your own words, it has to come from a text or a reliable source to really stand as proof of what you're trying to say. If it was just in your own words, it's really not trustworthy or reliable because why is someone just going to believe what you're saying happened in the text? They need to see examples of exactly how it was cited in the text to be able to see why you think what you think and to be convinced that the way you see things is the correct way to see it. So, for example, in my claim that I have here, I'm trying to prove that throughout the Graveyard book by Neil Gaiman, Bod shows that he is perceptive. And perceptive means that he's really aware of things, he notices things, and he picks up on them quickly. So I went through this text excerpt and I went through and tried to find a place in this excerpt that really proves where he's aware of what's going on around himself and that he's being really perceptive. So I pulled from the text certain lines right here that really help me prove that. I use quotation marks to show that these words are not my own. I'm taking them away from a text. So it shows that you're taking away evidence from a text, and it's like a symbol for your reader when they see those quotes that you are gathering evidence or you're taking something that isn't your own to prove something or as backup for something. Another part of my evidence that you can see is I include the page number in parentheses. I do that so my reader can figure out where my evidence comes from. It shows that I'm being reliable, and it also would allow them to go back in the text if they wanted to look in context and see what are the lines surround what I chose. They could go back and find that evidence in context and look back in the text themselves. Notice that when I'm citing, I'm putting the just the page number in the parentheses. I don't need to put PG or anything like that. The reader knows that the number inside of the parentheses is the page number, so I don't have to provide anything else but that. Also notice that my punctuation is outside of these parentheses. It's not inside the quotation marks. It's right outside because that is where the end of my sentence is. So pay really close attention to how to cite the evidence. It's also important when you're citing evidence that you're aware of how much you need to prove your point. If I included all of this as evidence, it would be too much and it wouldn't all be relevant to what I'm trying to prove. All of these lines don't help to show that he's perceptive. This line really shows that he's perceptive. So for me to include all of this, it would be too much evidence and it would be irrelevant. It wouldn't really help me prove my point. I don't have to point out how he landed on the toys. I don't need to point out how he got down the stairs because that isn't showing how perceptive he is as clearly. Also notice that I included the whole line. If I had only included something like he was surprised when he hit the floor, that wouldn't be enough evidence to really prove how perceptive he is. It's really key that it shows what he understands. If you cried, they came and put you back in your crib. So it's important that I include this whole line so there's enough evidence to show the reader what I'm trying to prove. Sometimes if you only include a little bit, it leaves out some key details the reader would need to see in the evidence to help them understand how this piece of evidence connects to your claim. So those are some of the basics in terms of how to cite evidence. So making sure that you take it right from the text, use quotation marks to cite it, you always indicate your page number, you only include the number and nothing else in the parentheses, you put the punctuation outside the parentheses, and you try to include just enough evidence, not too much and not too little, to prove your point.